Hello and welcome to this second St Francis College short course, Being Anglican. There are 5 sessions and each features some video to watch and questions to ponder, either on your own or with a group. Anglican is a word we throw around a lot, but what does it actually mean? Where did our church come from? What is distinctive about being an Anglican Christian? Finding some answers to those questions is what this short course is all about. Episode 1 traces the origins of the Anglican Church. You'd expect talk here about Henry VIII, but there are threads that stretch way back before him too. Looking at these threads is super helpful to understanding what our church is all about. It's fascinating. Archbishop Philip Aspinall is our expert for this course. He has given these issues a lot of thought. Archbishop Philip will help you understand what it is to be Anglican.
So Anglican identity then, I'm really hopeful that Anglicans in Brisbane and elsewhere will really reclaim their identity and build confidence in Anglican character and identity as something really valuable and strong as a contribution we have to make. And so I'm on a bit of a mission to help people dig into who we are as Anglicans and to reclaim that character and identity and to love it and use it, which is why I focused most of my address at this most recent synod in that area. People sometimes joke about Anglicans being lukewarm and a bit wishy-washy. You sometimes hear it said that you can believe anything you like and still be an Anglican. Some of you might remember that now infamous episode of Yes, Prime Minister, where the Prime Minister has to appoint a new bishop in the Church of England. And Sir Humphrey Appleby explains to the Prime Minister that Anglicanism is really a device for allowing agnostics to remain in the church. We are easy targets for cheap shots, but I wonder how aware we are of the richness and strength and value of our Anglican identity and heritage. Appreciating that will increase our confidence and, in a proper sense, our pride in being Anglican and about what we Anglicans have to offer our society today. So what marks our Anglican identity and character? One of my Roman Catholic friends at university, when he was in the mood for an argument, used to say, "I belong to the church that Jesus started. Which one do you belong to?" And to get the argument going, he'd insist that because the Pope wouldn't permit Henry to divorce and remarry, Henry VIII decided to start his own church, the Anglican Church. Well, there's a grain of truth in my friend's view, but not much more. Nearly 1,000 years before Henry, in 596, Pope Gregory the Great sent about 30 monks from Rome to evangelise Anglo-Saxon England. Gregory appointed Augustine, the prior of the monastery, as the leader. And in the years that followed, as Augustine's monks moved north and west from Canterbury, they ran into British communities of Celtic Christianity, some of which had been there for nearly 200 years before Augustine's mission. Patrick was wandering around the British Isles from about 390 to 460. That ancient Celtic church had been pushed into Wales in the west and into Scotland in the north by the invading Anglo-Saxons. It was isolated from the rest of the Western Church and so had developed its own systems of organisation based on monasteries, and it had its own bishops and its own missionary strategy. Eventually, as Augustine's mob moved north and west, they couldn't help but run into these Celtic communities in those areas. And the differences between the two approaches caused difficulties. Augustine called the Celtic church leaders to meet with him and, of course, tried to persuade them to adopt the Roman practices of the rest of Western Christianity. He also wanted them to cooperate with him in evangelising the Anglo-Saxons. But the Celts wouldn't agree. They wanted to maintain their own heritage, and they were still bitter about the way they'd been treated by the Anglo-Saxons. Not to be deterred, Augustine called a second conference, but blew it right from the start. He refused to stand up when the British bishops arrived, so they saw him as completely lacking in humility, and so they wouldn't acknowledge him and refused to see him as their archbishop. Augustine didn't help matters by saying that if they would not have peace with their brethren, then they would have war with their enemies. So things were not off to a good start. If you're tempted to think that today's tensions and conflicts in the Anglican communion are a new thing, then just reread the story of Augustine's mission. The conflict between the Celtic North and the Roman South continued until the Synod of Whitby in 664, so we're talking 65 years, when they finally agreed on a common date for Easter and a uniform way to shave monks' heads, and I don't know what else. So 1,000 years before Henry VIII, you have Augustine's mission. 200 years before that, Patrick and Celtic Christianity were active. And 200 years earlier still, the first British martyr, Alban, has his death recorded in 209. So Christianity in England dates back nearly to apostolic times, and certainly to the times of the early church fathers. So, getting back to my friend at university, Anglicanism does have its roots in England. That was the grain of truth in what he had to say. But they go back a long, long way before the turmoil of the 16th century. William Temple is widely regarded as a quintessential Anglican. He became Archbishop of Canterbury in 1942 at the height of the Second World War, and he summed up the kind of spirit of Anglicanism when he wrote this: "Our special character and our peculiar contribution to the universal church arises from the fact that, owing to historic circumstances, we have been enabled to combine in our one fellowship the traditional faith and order of the Catholic Church with that immediacy of approach to God through Christ to which the evangelical churches bear witness, and freedom of intellectual inquiry whereby correlation of the Christian revelation and advancing knowledge is constantly affected." If you're looking for a description of Anglicanism in a nutshell, you'll go a long way to do better than that. In that pithy paragraph, Temple neatly sums up the three main emphases in Anglicanism: the Catholic, the Protestant, Reformed or Evangelical, whichever term you prefer, and reason and experience. Sometimes called the liberal emphasis, though wrongly, I think. Let me look at each of those three emphases in turn.